Let me present Tania Sosa Alejo. She's security manager at GAP, and she's going to be leading International Airport Security Panel, the Israel Airport. And so they're going to talk about what they've done in terms of SEMS in Israel. Tania, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, Javier.
Well, thank you very much, Javier. I'll do it in English. I want my colleagues in Israel to be able to follow this.
Pues and thank you, welcome everybody. It's amazing how many participants we have for this symposium, our 10th GAP Security Symposium, and it's just amazing. So I'm honored to introduce you to our colleagues from the Israel Airport Authority. They're represented today by Mr. Roni Tidhar and Mr. Roee Laufer. Mr. Roni Tidhar serves as Israel Airport Authority Head of International Consulting Services. He carries vast experience in civil aviation security and emergency management from his 30 years in Israel Ben Gurion's International Airport Security Division in multiple positions, and many years parallel to that as El Al Israeli Airlines Air Marshal and Operational Flight Security Manager, working in dozens of airports across the globe. Roni also contributes articles on various professional publications and is a keynote speaker in worldwide conferences. He's an active senior officer to IDF Colonel Reserve Units, a volunteer police squad commander, and is serving as a volunteer and the local community public representative and used to serve as a union representative within the IAA. He also carries a BA in political sciences and far studies from Hebrew University in Jerusalem and an MA in security diplomacy for senior management from TAU. And also, I would like to introduce you to Mr. Roee Laufer. He is the head of cyber and information security at the Israel Airports Authority. He's considered a leading expert in cybersecurity program management and holds vast experience in leading security roles for financial, government, and high-tech organizations and corporations. Prior to assuming this role, Mr. Laufer was the CISO of NICE Systems, a worldwide leading provider of recording and analytic solutions. Prior to that, Mr. Laufer held the role of CISO at AIG Israel Insurance Ltd. Before joining IAJ, he held a CISO position in a governmental organization. And without any further delay, please feel free.
Well, thank you, Tania, Javier, all our friends in Mexico. Thank you for the opportunity. Do you hear me right? Can you hear me? Okay, cool.
Yes, very good.
Thank you for having us in this, your morning, our late evening, but it is important for us. It is especially important because we do understand, Roee and myself, that we are coming as replacement to TSA directors that should have spoken, and that's becoming a habit that we replace them here and there. Maybe we should send them an invoice or something like that. No, just joking. I will use, if you let me share screen, I will use a presentation, not that long, I guess. And later on, after some Q&A, I think you have the best speaker of today. This is Roee, and he's going to show you some very unique elements in cybersecurity for airports and civil aviation at all for Israel that we have in our airports. So without further ado, I'll try to share my screen. And I think is that. Can you see it? Guys, some feedback. Can you see it? Hello?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just so I'll know what is going on. So I would like to start with saying I'm going to skip that speaker introduction because you did it, Tania. Thank you so much for your kind words. I will present a little bit about Israel Airports Authority and why we are speaking here today. We are a full 100% governmental owned in Israel. We are public sector, we are statutory authority, which means that there is a law in Israel that its name is Israel Airports Authority Law. And so we act with a full backup and support of governmental institutions. But as you can see it here in red, we are not funded by the government. This has very important impact, especially on what I'm going to show you today. But on a day-to-day, in a normal world, let's say 2019 and backwards, we had recruited our own funds in order to maintain and operate the facilities that we are responsible for, in order to secure them. And I will speak about airport security. This is the subject for today. We also funded development. So if the government decided that we need to build a new airport, we had the obligation to get the funds for it and and eventually to spend it and to build those facilities or any kind of projects or infrastructure that we want to do for the public good. It's not a private equity, it's not a private company, it's a totally governmental event. Now, Ben Gurion Airport, International Airport, is our main gate. It represents about 98% of our operations, and obviously from our income. And just to show you what other facilities that we are responsible for, it's a long list. We have 2 international airports, Ben Gurion Airport and Ramon International. We have 3 domestic airports marked here. Another one is to be developed in the near future, hopefully, as general aviation airport. And we just recently closed 3 domestic airports. So with partial international activity. So as you can see, it's not an authority of one airport. It's an authority that actually operates several. We are responsible for land border crossing terminals. We have 5 of them, 3 on the border with Jordan, with the Hashemite Kingdom, and 2 of them on the Egyptian border on our south. And on top of that, if that wasn't interesting enough, although it's not represented in our name, we are actually the operators of the ANSP, the air navigation system, and air traffic control, and you can see how many facilities. This is very important event when Roee is going to present later on, because everybody understands how to physically do airports, but when you have the authority on the national authority to operate air navigation, this is a totally different ball game, a totally different responsibility, and very important to our subject here. I was presenting a couple of years ago in Port of Vallarta, if I remember correctly, for I guess it was the 9th or 8th event. And it was a very long presentation regarding all the physical security layers and array of Ben Gurion Airport, as an example. Today I'm going to change and not repeat myself, and I will go to share some different acknowledgement. But I cannot avoid the need to show you our concept in one slide. This is, although it's 2-dimensional and static right now, for us it's a vivid thing, it's living, it's influencing, and it's always on the move. you can see here in our holistic approach to security that physical and IT or digital are completing each other. It's not instead, I cannot nowadays, I cannot measure the volume of it, whether physical is 70% and IT is 30% or 50-50 or vice versa. I really cannot measure it. What's important, it's the concept that they are completing each other. And we in Israel Airports Authority have the full responsibility of airport security from coast to coast. We are handling physical security, including armed security. We are doing passenger security. We are doing commercial security, duty-free merchandise, and such. We have some responsibility regarding to cargo, commercial cargo. We are doing cyber security. I'm not going to focus on that because Roee is going to do that. So you have everything under one umbrella, under one roof. It's a one-stop shop, and this comes with very important abilities to act, approved by the, as I mentioned before, by governmental ministries and by the regulators, our own Israeli regulators, or the Civil Aviation Authority, which is a regulator to us, and some others. And in order to support this effort, this yin-yang effort, we need to touch almost on a daily basis with those two phrases that I placed on the right and left here. It's our ongoing R&D effort. We always on the move. We always look for better solutions, for new solutions. We canvas the world, trying to find whatever can support our systems, and the ongoing regulation. And this is, once again, I'm going to speak about the effects of COVID-19 in Israel and abroad, and the ongoing regulation, or the fact that we actually needed to invent things on the move. This is a very important thing from our security array concept. So I guess, like everybody else, I'm not going to show you here something new. It's relatively easy to spot a black swan, right? So if you see a bunch of white swans, you see one black swan, it's easy to differ. We are security personnel, and this is our responsibility to try to locate surprises. Now, actually doing airport security or international civil aviation security, it's a bit more complicated than that. It goes to complication like this one. Is it relatively easier or harder to spot a needle in a haystack? It's a cliche. I know everybody is saying needle in a haystack, but actually in airport security, what you do is that, trying to find a needle from needle stack. Or in our case, as the image shows here, we're trying to find the one person or that actually gonna bring some threat to the airport. Now, I'm speaking, and I know that a few months back I used to speak, and the image in my mind was terrorists, trying to find the next terrorist. The past year taught us that you try to find something that is other from terrorism. Not that we forgot the terrorism event, but also the health problem that we just faced. It's bigger as much, at least in these days. So who was prepared for that? Even if we had it written down in our security program and in our risk assessment, and we knew that there are pandemics in the world, and we saw SARS and MERS and things like that before, I guess nobody really thought that the volume of or the impact of that kind of event would reach the altitude that we are here 1 year after. So it is something that I guess we all remember in airport security, especially for upcoming years. Now, some words about the status of COVID-19 in Israel. First of all, for those that are less acquainted with us, our population is 9 million people all over Israel. I guess it's a half or even less than that, maybe 35% of Mexico City. But this is the total number that we have. Total verified cases up till today are close to 9% of the population. This is very high percentage, and I'm going to review it in a minute why. And the total death, unfortunately, that we had up till half an hour are 6,098 deaths, and each one of them is important. Now, at that stage, before I'm going to explain Israel, I want to tell you that I'm following the status in many countries, and in Mexico in particular, and I know that you have also huge effect, and you're fighting COVID-19 pandemic, and with many casualties. And please let me convey my condolences to and my empathy to all countries, and especially to Mexico in this event of today. Now, why do we have so many people in Israel affected by it? Although the ratio between verified and death is very mild relatively, yet again, we are a small country. We have very few ports of entry. The major one, as mentioned before, is Ben Gurion Airport. A year ago, exactly at mid-March 2020, we knew that we need to close our borders. And it was also taken as governmental decisions to close our borders, yet again, due to some constraints and local decisions. Some people returning from abroad brought the virus with it, and along these 12 months, some variants also made their way into Israel. Now, we are not a completely homogeneous population. We have different sectors, and some sectors have less faith that this is actually a pandemic, or the official solutions to the pandemic is what they need to do and to act. And by that, we had an outburst in several communities in Israel, or sectors in Israel, that actually pushed up the numbers here. And so this is unfortunate, because the concept, like everybody are talking about New Zealand as an example state, we had the same concept, but we failed to achieve it, and this is unfortunate. Although within the airport we knew what we needed to do. So yet again, the other side of Israeli war on COVID-19 is this one. I think we are quite famous for achieving high rates up till now of vaccinated between our population. As you can see, combined here, there are already half of the total population are already after second dose. This is not, bear in mind that children are not vaccinated up till now, and there are some at-risk population, and this number isn't including the number here, those that actually already got COVID-19 and have a natural immune to that right now. So altogether, we are achieving a very high percentage. Why do I, now when I speak about airport security, why do I mention those numbers? Because these are crucial for us to recover and to go and have a better travel industry, because up till a week ago, we were almost completely shut at the airport. We worked on a pace of between 5 to 10 flights a day, comparing to 300 flights a day at normal times. So this is very important to us. Because I'm speaking with many colleagues around the world, I know that they are struggling throughout this year with same problem, same targets to achieve, and I cannot really teach you a new thing here when I come to say that airport new consideration are social distancing, crowd control, in congestions, try to avoid it, spread checking when you have flights, all the sanitation or masks and gloves efforts. All of these are here. But what's important is what became a very crucial effort by most of the airports that I know throughout this year globally. Everybody understood that seamless and touchless journey, these are not just words. Everybody are actually striving to achieve it. Everybody, when I come to the airport, I don't want to touch anything but my cell phone. This is the only thing that I want to touch. This is the optimum. I want to do all activities through that, and by that, security area should adjust and adopt these kind of technologies. The temperature checks, this I called it from the beginning. This is opium for the mass. This is not something really relevant to fight COVID-19. The temperature checks, and luckily, I think everybody understood it now and are lowering their attention on temperature checks in airport and to take it to other things. But verifying documents, verifying green passports. Me and Roee, I guess we already have our green Israeli acknowledgement that we are already a week after our second vaccination. So we are allowed to go to public spaces, and although still with mask and everything, but we can try to return to normal life. And in the upcoming months, I guess the whole world is going to adopt standards of how to acknowledge each country in each country the other country's document, and it should be hopefully on QR barcodes or things or on documentation that you cannot forge. All our services at the airport we want to consume through this apps and touchless technologies, and these are very important. And but it opens a gap to other risks. I'm not gonna take it from Roee. He's the expert on that. The aircraft sanitation exceeded the ground time that we were used to. So even as we go back to some normality, we cannot go at the same pace. Ben Gurion Airport had close to 25 million passengers in 2019, and this year we are looking at, well, the rough truth is that we are expecting somewhere between 2 to 4 million passengers up till now in the current pace. This is almost nothing. But even though everybody would be vaccinated and everybody have a free travel, yet again we cannot, under these criteria that we are adopting now, we cannot operate in the same volume, in the same pace. So not jump in the 20 million plus passengers so quickly. It would take time. I don't know. I'm not a prophet. I cannot really say between 2 to 5 years. But the return is not as steep as the drop was. Some impacts on border control, as I mentioned before, we have also land border crossings. Most of them were closed through the pandemic, and our terminals were closed. But coming back to it, economic-wise, obviously that almost killed our budgets. All security budgets stayed on the minimum and were allocated to health measures being taken place. And now to bring that back again, this is very problematic. So this is a very big impact on the airport security, and that's, I guess, globally. the phenomena of the pandemic that it comes and goes in waves, and the crisis seems to be never ending. One country thinks that it won the fight, and a few months later they have it once again. This is a very problematic when you come to design or to figure out how you're going to do security throughout 2021 or 2022. Profession-wise, how do you do behavioral analysis? How you apply your techniques when everybody are either edgy because they're afraid to get COVID-19 in the airport, or they don't want to be near people, and obviously when they have face masks, how do you see the reactions? How do you speak with people you don't really understand? When we return to normality, sometimes you need to overcome language barriers. Now add facial masks to it, it's becoming more and more problematic. Managing our own manpower. This is for security personnel. It became huge effort and sometimes very, I wouldn't say that successful sometimes, because on the furlough, we needed to release most of our junior staff to furlough period that took months, sometimes a year, and to bring them back recruit them back in order not to waste their experience became almost an impossible mission. And on the other hand, we cannot really recruit new ones because nobody is allocating budgets for that. So this is problematic, and I guess this is going to color our upcoming year, the struggle between the growing numbers of passengers and the need to fight to bring back some employees in order to treat those passengers. We needed obviously not only to protect passengers, this is obvious, but also to protect our own manpower at the airport. We were the first to get impacted by tourists coming in, or by Israelis coming in with the pandemic, and we are still there on the trenches, on the front line. So employees at the airport needed to be protected, and the whole flexible things of countries or zones in the world becoming red and green areas. You need to understand now this country became red. What do you do with your own people stranded there? How do you bring them back? It's gonna change the game here. Just change the game totally. As a security professional, I wouldn't advise before that security guards would deal with health issues, because it takes the focus. As I mentioned, we were accustomed to look for terrorists. Now we are trying to look who's not wearing face mask or something like that. It's a disruption from the mission. It is bringing overload, especially on screeners if they need to deal with it. So as an airport authority, we think that it's better to divide and allocate specific personnel to deal with health issues, and let security personnel do security in airport. I was talking about that, just a second, let me run it through. We have problems with rebuilding the airport community trust, doing practices and drills throughout this year because of the restrictions that we couldn't be in the same area more than several people. Less drills, less preparedness practice. That has its toll. Now we are trying to rebuild it and to assume it, and it should be modified. For instance, we bring a group of people to practice, only a group of vaccinated personnel, and the other day the group that are not vaccinated. We don't mix them, so we can control the event a little bit. But we need to come back to that, and we need to do much more with less resources. That opens the field for innovation. Everybody all over the world and especially startup industry came to understanding very fast that we are under fire. We need to invent, we need to change, we need to bring solutions. And I'm talking from a perspective of airport industry, but it is true in other areas of society as well. Yet again, improvisations came to became I don't know, global sport. Before, everybody were planning very orthodoxly, taking their time. Now everybody that has some kind of idea is running and just testing it to see if it's working. I see it as a positive thing. It's accustomed to say that Israelis are very good in improvisation, not in planning. So for us, it's part of the DNA, and I think that this brings the world in a rapid pace towards the real solutions. Sorry. The ever-changing effect, I mentioned the amoeba effect of borders and closures and reopening and states becoming green and red and pink and every color that there is. We need to find solutions that would be flexible enough to support us in order to handle a travel industry better. And here is the rapid benchmark and copying the trial and error effort between different airports or stakeholders. I see in lack of formal regulation either by ICAO or from civil aviation authorities or things like that, you could see throughout this year different organizations adopting some kind of strategy or some kind of techniques and actually sharing it. That's why you see IATA travel pass is exceeding borders, and the different airlines are using it as pilots. So airports are referring to that in their strategy. You can see I was in conversations with throughout this year with China or with US-based airports, and we are sharing ideas. We are trying to tell our colleagues, listen, do you have something new? Let us just know the headline of it, and we will try and see if this is also can be tailored to our needs. And this is a very important effort as well, as I see it. I don't see, although I place this image here of monitoring everybody and looking whether they have COVID or not, this is not the solution. This is another measure. The solution would be dealing with vaccination and bringing seamless and touchless travel experience, all together with the minimal health regulations of spacing and masking. That would bring travel industry to back to it. So I'm not going to run you through different technologies, but new apps or video analytics or cellular solutions, or we employ a new test lab within the airport. It was inaugurated last November and working very efficiently. All these are fields to actually to come and bring new solutions. And now everybody are talking about X-raying or projecting something on hold luggage in order to clear it from COVID, but it's not there yet. So these are fields to explore yet. Please, I don't want to take so much time. Just I took one example of video analytics, common use practices that can support airport right now. You can use some analytics on approaching crowd and monitoring them on curbside, on terminal, indoor, outdoor. There are very new things here. I'm not here as part of the presenters of technologies, but I'm sure that throughout this conference and expo, you'll be able to see some suppliers, and they have very good solutions. So we look at it as well. Key takeouts. Well, there's no new thing here. It is true today like it was before. For every risk in airports environments, we need to do basic risk assessment and then gather our overall concept, do advanced risk assessment, and go through all those examples that I'm showing here in order to bring very good airport security plan, and very stable one that supports us in many efforts, not only on one dimension. And collaboration, talking between airports authorities, either doing peer reviews or updating the roadmap, as I mentioned before, with when you hear that your neighbor is doing something that you haven't thought about it but makes sense, and employ risk assessment model also on health measures, but on the basics as well. And drilling, lots of tabletop exercises. If you cannot bring big masses of employees to practice, at least train the managers and directors in tabletops and things like that. So at least somebody know how to run an emergency when it happens. Okay, this is for me for now. I try not to exceed my time. Tania, if there are any questions on these topics, and I think that that in a minute you'll hear Roee, and I mean, that was the boring part. Now Roee is going to do the interesting part.
Thank you, Roni. We have some questions now. You want to take them now, or you want to finish until now?
If they are dealing with physical security or concept, yes, let's take it now. And then, because I'm sure that in the end there will be lots of cyber-related, cybersecurity-related questions.
Okay, well, I have one question here that says, what biosecurity protocols have you been implementing during the pandemic in all your Israel airports?
Sure, okay. First of all, in general, when you have a security protocol, you don't change it so rapidly. The situation might change, but you still have your protocols. Now, to adopt and to do it, as I mentioned before, with face mask, with the distancing, suddenly our security interviewers need to speak from a distance. Suddenly, they don't need to touch with bare hands in the documents or in the belongings of passengers. So these are very easy, but I think that maybe the question also touched base with which extra security measures concerning health we did at the airport. So first of all, this event brought new players into the game. It brought several governmental ministries with different jurisdiction areas, and we needed to live in between and try to coordinate all. For instance, immigration. Usually they know what they do, but on the past few months, they needed to have a special committee to consider which passenger can enter Israel or depart Israel. Now, this is a new thing. We are, as an airport and airport security, needed to support that and to make sure that only those that had the permission can approach the terminal and go into and go and check in. And with lack of manpower, we needed to adopt some new angles on perimeter security and terminal security. As I mentioned, we introduced sampling and lab for COVID-19 within the airport. It's not automatically connected to security division of the airport, but many employees were actually in contact and needed to learn how to live with it and to make sure that there is no overlapping on one hand or mixes sometimes with jurisdiction. This was very hard. I mean, what airports knows as the security committee of the airport totally changed. New players around the table.
Thank you. And this question is sort of related to the previous one. How have you been able to control the cases of counterfeit documents or passengers, imposter passengers versus the existing biosecurity measures in your airports?
Well, we had several events with counterfeited documents. Those that introduced it while departing from United States towards Israel. They managed to bluff the airline officials and actually made their way also into Israel. But the minute that because they were checked in the airport and the answer that they were positive came very fast, and then we had the document that they are clear and the positive test result. So law enforcement got to them very fast, and there was a famous case of two families that actually were deported the next day. I mean, they managed to get in, but on the next day they were deported. Although you know that in Israel Jews are allowed entry on regular. I mean, it doesn't matter if they have Israeli passports or not. Yet again, they were deported without second thought. So you need to handle it with gloves, but better have some iron fist inside of them.
Thank you. And here, I think this will be the last one. Have you have an increase in your investment on security during the pandemic, or you have reduced them as it happens in a lot of other countries?
Unfortunately, we needed to reduce our spending and our projects, and that's why I opened with the budget stuff. Yet again, I know of many airports that actually allocated budget to innovation, and part of it is security technologies and systems. So although the total number of dollars was reduced, the percentage within the budget was shifted to security and health measure or emergencies. And I know that some airports did some excellent things, some great examples of how to improve security. They're going to be very strong when they eventually return to business.
Thank you, Roni. And I think those are the questions we have received so far.
Thank you for.
So if we can go ahead with Mr. Laufer presentation, and I'm sure we will have more questions for both of you at the end.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this wonderful symposium. We're very excited to be part of it. I will try to cover what is usually considered as its sort of behind the scenes look. I mean, Roni mentioned it before, and I will echo it throughout my presentation. A lot of talk around being able to cope with the COVID-19 outbreak using technologies, a lot of innovation, there was a very good question around the topic of counterfeiting documents. What is happening behind the scenes, and I will try to provide an insight into the war of shadows, so to speak, and that's the cyber arena. If you don't mind, I'll share the presentation. Can everyone see okay?
Yes, very good. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'll start by saying that, okay, I already said it's a pleasure to be here, but I'll say it again. My name is Roee Laufer. I'm the head of the cyber division for the Israel Airports Authority. As part of my role, I manage the cyber efforts to protect our assets, being international airports, domestic airports, land border crossings. And what is also unique about the Israel Airports Authority is that we actually control and manage the airspace, meaning we are our own ANSP. We are a navigation service provider. So we control, manage, and operate all of those facilities. From a cyber perspective, it's both a huge challenge and an advantage. A challenge since this environment is very, very diverse. It's also an advantage since we have an holistic overview of the entire operation. Now, Roni mentioned it, and I'll mention it again. We have a very, very strict understanding that in order to provide proper security for the organization, this has to be, and this is Roni's famous yin-yang slide, there has to be a deep correlation between the physical aspect of security and the digital or the virtual, logical, cyber aspect of security. You can't really, and this is our pardigam, you can really have a efficient, broad coverage for the organization in terms of security without looking at both ends of the stick, physical and logical. COVID-19, there was a huge spike in cybersecurity related incidents. At the latest, I think it's the latest, the 16th edition of the World Economic Forum, they actually said that it's part of their global risk report. They actually said or ranked cybersecurity failure as a critical threat to the world, meaning that the COVID-19 pandemic actually, on a good side, accelerated the adoption of new technologies. And Roni mentioned innovation and the need to resolve issues using technology. But on the other hand, it exposed the cyber vulnerabilities and lack of preparedness. If we look at what was happening in the aviation world, and it is my belief that the COVID-19 actually accelerated this trend, there was digitalization of core processes. Back at the days when there were actually passengers and airports were in full capacity, it was due to provide airports with the ability to cope with the exponential growth in passenger numbers. These days, while there is a lack of the number of passengers has decreased dramatically, the thing is that a lot of innovation and technologies in order to cope with the pandemic's threat caused digitalization of core processes. This puts IT at the core of the airport's business. An airport is not an high-tech organization, a lot of technologies, but the culture usually is not very IT minded. And it's an easy equation. Whenever we have IT on one hand and digitalization on the other hand, it equals an increased attack surface for cyber incidents. In the Israel Airports Authority, we operate under a few very basic assumptions. You hear a lot on the news, I'm guessing, about cyber incidents, ransomware, to be more specific. This is a global pandemic. Again, the World Economic Forum actually marked ransomware as one of the highest crimes currently. And what we see is a rapid increase in sophisticated targeted attacks. Now, it's not just in the numbers, it's also in the sophistication of the actual incident. When we travel around in civil aviation related organizations, it doesn't have to be airports, could be airlines and airport authorities, we usually ask what technologies the organization is using. And what we hear a lot are what we call COT technology, commodity off-the-shelf technologies. For example, we use firewalls, we use antivirus, and so on. We believe, and I wrote several articles about that, this is what I call false sense of security. And why is that? A firewall is a 20 or 30-year-old technology. It's an Israeli technology, by the way. But it's almost 30 years old. Now, obviously, it evolved, a lot of new features, a lot of new capabilities, but the core concept is several decades old. And we're using that in order to cope with more sophisticated cyber attacks. Now, we believe that the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And if we don't evolve, if we don't keep pushing ourselves in order to meet the advancement in technologies, we find ourselves with a weak link, with a weak chain, sorry. Weak link that causes the entire chain to be weak. And the outcome of a cyber incident, it's as far as the imagination goes. It could be starting with data leakage, could be an entire organization that is being encrypted, could be disruptions in the service of information systems, and it could be Die Hard 2 or Die Hard 4. I can't remember even the movie. There's always a debate whether it's Die Hard 2 or Die Hard 4. What we are more concerned with are the incidents that you don't see are happening. Whenever you have what we call noise, loud incidents, you see things are happening, you see the computer is encrypted, you see things are happening within the system, it's easier to detect. What we are more concerned with are what we call low and slow. The incidents that, according to studies, it takes organizations an average of 200 days in order to understand that they've been hacked. 200 days, meaning that the bigger part of the year, an organization is hurting from a cyber perspective and it doesn't even know. And these are the types of incidents that we are more concerned with. COVID-19, work from home, one of the biggest trends of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's interesting to see that the number of devices that are exposing what we call remote desktop protocol, are open to the internet, has grown over the past month. And obviously, it makes sense since more and more organizations moved to remote work. The bad part of it is the top cyber attacks that are happening as a result of that. Targeted attacks, World Health Organization, 5-fold increase in cyber attacks urges vigilance. A dramatic increase in the number of cyber attacks, targeting the public at large. Malware. By the way, according to studies, there are around 300,000 new malware variants that are introduced every 24 hours. Now, going back to one of our basic assumptions, we are trying to deal with 300,000 new malware variants every 24 hours using commodity off-the-shelf technologies. The equation just doesn't work. These are, by the way, this is the COVID-19 global cases. And you can see the total confirmed. This is a map that was hacked. And whoever tried to look at this map actually was hit by a cyber malware. A lot of different maps, mobile applications, URLs, links to different websites were hacked using these methods and various methods. And whoever pressed this link or whoever visited those websites or apps was hit by malware. Ransomware, global pandemic. This is just one example of COVID-19 tracker. Enable app inaccessibility for active stats monitoring and so on. This was actually a scam, and this led to ransomware attacks, to organizations being encrypted. Your phone is encrypted. This was using a mobile app. This was the result of using that specific application. Phishing was a huge spike in phishing-related incidents. Phishing means that you send links and emails and messages, text messages that try to lure you into pressing a certain link or entering data or providing information. And the idea behind it is that those links or websites that you come to are actually are not real. They're actually fake. And whatever data, a username, password, credit card information, private information of whatever sort, this is actually being stolen by the attackers. It was a tremendous spike of forged emails and messages, meaning phishing, around the COVID-19. A lot of us wanted to get more and more information. This is an example of World Health Organization, so-called an email from the World Health Organization. It was actually a fake. And whoever pressed the safety measures and entered data, that data was stolen. And malicious domains, again, luring the users to visit websites that are malicious. And when you come to those websites, if you download files, if you press on certain links, the computer or the workstation is actually infected in the background. Most of the times, the user doesn't even know it is happening. I won't get into that, but a lot of COVID-19 cyber attacks, it was a tremendous spike. I could just go on and on about Trojans, about phishing scams, about tracking apps that locks the Android phones, map malware that can spy on the Android phone's microphone and camera. Many types of cyber or COVID-19 cyber-related incidents. Ransomware, hospitals that were hit. Again, ransomware. Let's talk a bit about who are behind. I mean, we spoke a lot about cyber incidents and a lot of examples around the COVID-19 spike in cyber incidents. Who are the actors that are behind it? So you see in front of you multiple threat actors. Those threat actors might use what we call threat vectors, meaning that sending a malicious email or malicious link or malicious text message, that's the vector which the actors that you see in front of you might use. As an Israeli strategic facility, the Israel Airports Authority actually tries to deal with every actor that you see in front of you. Obviously, this differs depending on the organizations you're at. Meaning, if, for example, you are a financial organization, you will probably be more concerned with organized crime for obvious financial reasons and disgruntled employees that might steal customers' data. Again, as an airport, we look at all of the actors in front of you. Obviously, government state-sponsored cyber attacks are the highest ranking in terms of risk and efforts that you need to put in order to cope. But it doesn't mean that anarchists or radical hacktivists cannot cause harm or disruption to the operation. That's why we need to look at the broader map, put our prioritization and allocate resources based on our analysis of the risk, but we definitely need to look at the entire map. A cyber incident is an evolving event, and this is a key thing that we need to remember. Whenever an organization is being hit with a cyber incident, there's a lot of similarities between physical security and cybersecurity, but there are also some very key differences. One of them being that a cyber incident abilities to leak into other areas of the organization is tremendous. A cyber incident can start at one end of the organization in a certain system, and by having an interconnected communication with other systems, can leak and move what we call lateral movement within the organizations, and you can find yourself in a matter of very, very short time, you can find yourself with the entire organization operations being hit. This is a key thing that we need to understand. A cyber incident is all about responding in a timely or as close to real time as possible before the incident evolves. The second thing is, and I've mentioned it before, the outcome of a cyber incident is very, very, very fluidic. It's very, as far as the imagination goes. We have seen certain types of attacks in which a malware or a key or the attacker actually was able to reach the network, and then nothing happened. Nothing happened for months until one day the attacker started working. We see ransomware attacks that it's not about the money, it's about leaking the data. We see incidents in what we call a lot of smoke screens. We see incidents that are starting on one end of the organization. You start dealing with that, and all in parallel, you're being hit in a different section of the organization without even you knowing it. So the key difference is the ability of the incident to leak throughout the organization, and the outcome that might vary. Again, it's very, very dramatic, the ability to cause a lot of different failures and scenarios. In the Israel Airports Authority, we understood that in order to build a very comprehensive and efficient program, we need to understand what we are facing with. This is an actual photo taken from our Cyber Defense Center. This is one area of our Cyber Defense Center. This is the Operations Center. And the reason why we started with building these centers was, and there was a question around that, it was mainly around our ability to allocate resources. Our ability to understand which vector is more prominent, which types of attacks are hitting us more, and where we need to spend more money and resources in order to cope with what is currently a top priority. Without being able to understand what is going on in the cyber arena, we don't have a very efficient way of allocating our budget and manpower. So we came up with our Cyber Defense Center, and what we wanted to achieve is to be able to have a 24/7 real-time overview over our entire facilities and being able to understand where are our weakest links. We want to keep the chain as strong as possible. In order to do that, we need to understand where our weakest links are and what is hitting us more and who is hitting us more, and where do we need to spend our budget in order to cope with that. I won't get into that, but it's very important to understand that, like many other processes, the model of people, process, technology is key. You can't really deal with technology alone. You can't really say, I implemented antiviruses, therefore I'm secure, without understanding that you need, and in airports specifically, where you have a lot of safety and security concerns and a lot of very old and legacy types of processes, you need to be able to incorporate cyber practices within those processes in order to achieve a more robust cyber coverage. And obviously the people, it's not just about having the awareness. It's not just about training our employees in order to understand that the cyber risk is genuine and it's hitting organizations all over the world. It's about having the proper skill set within the organization in order to cope with such incidents. I can tell you that we keep seeing more and more incidents that are not just purely physical. We see taking over the monitors in order to steal servers. We had an airport, an airport in Europe that actually projected the guards actually saw a pre-recorded screen while the servers were being stolen. So we keep seeing a lot of types of incidents that are physical and cyber that combine together. And that's why I started by saying that we need to have an holistic overview over all of this. This needs to be achieved by having the people, process, and technologies in place, and understanding the business, understanding the services that we provide, understanding the business, understanding the core processes within the organization, and being able to combine the people, process, and technology into the core business of the organization. What we do, we actually want to know, and I put it as simple as I can, we actually want to know when we are hit. That's basically what we want to know. We want to know from a physical standpoint, it makes sense that if someone touches the fence, there are guards that go over there and want to manage the incident. What about our virtual fence? The organization has a virtual fence, logical fence. What about that? It needs to make sense to all organization, and this is after the COVID-19, it's even more prominent with the rise of the cyber incidents. We need to know when our organization is being hacked or being attacked. Therefore, we need to have continuous monitoring. We have to be able to alert the cyber professionals whenever there is something happening within the organization. And obviously, there is a very strong working relations between the cyber division and cyber defense center professionals with other areas of the organization, meaning that if we see something is happening with our CCTVs, we alert the security division as fast as possible. So they take care of it from their end, and we try to contain it from the cyber perspective. We are not just waiting for alerts to pop. We also run what we call threat hunting, meaning that we try to find the small fire before it reaches a full-scale incident. We want to find those small areas that might indicate that something is cooking, and we want to shut down the gas before it explodes. We want to find those indicators that might mean that something is happening from a cyber perspective. And we want to stop that before the operation is interrupted or the airport's operation is interrupted. What's next? We need to understand that tomorrow's threats will not be like today's. I mean, COVID-19 is a very, very strong indicator or example for that. It actually opened an entire new vectors into the game. Organization, I touched a bit about those organizations working from home, organizations that have the level of alertness being decreased because they are shut down, airports that are not operating, and that's the best time for hackers to try to get in and wait for the proper moment to operate. And the cyber threat is an evolving threat. So tomorrow's threats will not be like today's. This means that we should never underestimate our enemies. As I said, we are obviously more concerned and are preparing for state-sponsored cyber attacks, but we don't underestimate anyone. All you need is a internet connection, some motivation, keyboard, mouse, and YouTube videos in order to understand how to start making problems for for organizations. In order to defend ourselves, we need to think like attackers. We always need to find and ask ourselves, and this is also true for physical security, we always need to think, what will the attacker do? If I am the attacker, where would I go in through? What gate is open? Where is our weakest physical opening? Where is our weakest cyber or logical opening? And that's the weakest link. That's the link that determines the entire strength of the entire chain. And a key topic, we can speak about that for hours, is the supply chain. More and more, and in the aviation industry, it's very suppliers centric. Not a lot of IT and systems providers. It's not like the financial, health, or high-tech sectors. There are less suppliers in each niche, in each area, but this means that by one supplier being hit, hundreds and tens, if not hundreds, of aviation stakeholders might get hit. And there are examples for that. What do we need to do with it? The first thing we need to do is actually define our critical assets. And this is true no matter what type of organization we are. It's very generic. We need to define what our critical assets are. Being an airport, we consider our critical assets as the systems that might impact safety and security. But obviously, for each respective organization, the definition might vary. But the idea is that we need to define it. We need to be able, and again, I'm returning to the question of how do you cope with less resources? And yes, we have less resources, most definitely, as Roni mentioned. But this only means that we need to be able to allocate our resources in a more efficient way. We need to do that by defining what our critical assets are. And for those critical assets, we will probably be providing or allocating more budget. Obviously, we need to know where our sensitive data is. COVID-19, we have, as Roni mentioned, a lab in the airport's premise, a lot of personal PII, personal information, a lot of health-related information, a lot of forging documents, and we need to make sure that that sensitive data is protected. We need to start by mapping where that data is. Obviously, it resides within the computerized infrastructure. And as I said before, there is a logical or virtual fence around the organization. And as similar to the physical fence, we need to know when someone is trying to go through that defenses. We need to start by identifying the critical ecosystems. In a very short period in time, we need, and again, the 3 months, 6 months is just to show how urgent that is. It's just a call for action. We need to understand, pair our critical ecosystems, where our cyber vulnerabilities are, and for those, we need to develop and implement measures in order to attack, to cope with those vulnerabilities, mainly holding our vendors and suppliers accountable, starting with that. I won't get into that. A lot of this is actually taken from the Interpol's website. Check privacy, manage social media, strengthen your home network. These are recommendations, again, due to the increase of global cyber incidents due to COVID-19. So COVID-19 is here to stay. It will probably be like a lot of talk around around needing to being vaccinated each year. Probably something like hoping it will be something. I don't know really if hoping or not, but it will probably be something like a flu. taking vaccinations on a yearly basis. But COVID-19 is here to stay. And this means that organizations need to adopt, and are doing so as we speak, new ways of operating. These new ways of operating increase the attack surface for cyber incidents. And this means that organizations that are not prepared, it's only a matter of time. We truly believe that there are two types of organizations that have been hacked, and organizations that don't know they've been hacked. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And the fact that you don't feel something is happening, it doesn't mean that there isn't any type of malicious activity going around within the organization. It just means that you don't have the proper skill set or abilities or technologies in place in order to find that malicious activity. And in the post-COVID-19 era, where we will find ourselves with a lot of new technologies, a lot of touchless technologies, a lot of e-commerce, a lot of services that are being provided online, we need to start acting now. This is a call for action. We need to start and prepare ourselves for cyber incidents, because again, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. That was me. Hoping it's not too overwhelming.
Thank you. Excellent. Well, I don't have anything but to thank you for this amazing participation. And it's always nice to have you here. And on behalf of GAP, Segurilatam, and all our viewers, thank you very much.